Hey everybody, I'm John at Collect Cards. It is Wednesday, 19th. Wednesday, July 19th. We are like 7 days away, 1 week away from National 2023 in Chicago, where, you might see some of this I think the Cubs are actually out of town, but this is the Forever Beer, the Chicago Cubs. Um, just enjoying that a little bit. But I wanted to take a few minutes here and just share a few cards here. This is actually a VR for Mr. Fisher Bike, and I hope I have that um, screen name correct. Hope I have your account name correct there. But he asked for some VRs of some folks' just basically their 10 favorite vintage cards. And so I'm going to flip the camera around here and show you those. We'll just get right to it. So hang on just a sec. All right, here we're back. We're back here, and I'm just going to get right to it. So I'm going to go in reverse chronological. And so these are really my 10 favorite vintage cards today, let's just say. It could change with new pickups or just if I'm kind of in a different mindset when I would think about a top 10. But for right now, this is one of them right here. So again, these are not in order of like a rank. This is just from by year, starting with the most recent, working my way backwards. But this is a 1967 Topps Joe Morgan, third year card. It is his first card in a hitting pose. Well, technically his rookie card on the dual rookie in 65. He's probably in a batting pose there, but you can only basically see his head and shoulders in the shot. So what I like about this is that it's his first hitting card, and this is actually a recent pickup. I got this maybe just a few weeks ago at one of my LCSs here in town. What I like about it is what kind of drew me to it, and I may have seen it before, but I really like the 67 set, by the way. It's really grown on me, but this shot reminds me of, the classic 1975 World Series film, Game 7. He's up there doing his little twitch in his shoulder and arm to kind of lock himself in to get ready to hit, just his trademark. And he got that bloop single to center to score the winning run in Game 7 of the World Series that year against Boston. Kind of just a classic World Series moment. In that same play, his teammate Pete Rose had kind of one of his classic head first, airborne dives, full on airborne dives into third base. Just an awesome play all around. But this card really jumps out at me because of that. I really liked, like when I see this pose, it made me think of that right away. And I was like, that's just cool because that's just kind of like, a Hall of Famer's like trademark there. And so I thought that was a cool card to pick up because of that. So that's one of them. I'll kind of show a few here and then move them off and then, keep going from there. I'll try to pick up the pace, but I just wanted to talk a little bit about that card in general because it was a recent pickup actually. But my next one is my 1965 Topps Harmon Killebrew. For those who maybe have watched some of my other videos, you probably will have seen the majority of these cards before. It's a top 10, favorite vintage. So, it's bound to happen, I guess, in terms of, kind of pulling out your favorites again. But I did want to participate in this particular VR because I've enjoyed doing VRs over the few months now, that maybe half dozen of them I've done. 1965 Topps Harmon Killebrew. I've kind of gone on quite a bit about this card in some couple of videos. It's just what I could vouch for this being my favorite card in the entire golden age of the hobby. It's just an amazing card. I think just composition wise, I just think it's a perfect card. I like that he's looking off camera. It's just a really cool portrait during probably batting practice or something. Pre-game, the colors work great. It's just an awesome card, and the fact that I got it graded as a 7 recently makes it that much more awesome. So, love that card in particular. Definitely one of my favorite ones, and will probably always be. Next up is a special one, and hence it's among my favorites because again, this is a repeat showing here. It's my first vintage card that I ever purchased. I do recall that this is my first one in terms of vintage. I bought it as either, I don't know, a 16, 17, or 18-year-old, late 80s, maybe 1990s or so at the latest. But 1963 Topps Dan Musial, it's actually his last playing our card, and that's what drew me to it, was just seeing all of those stats on the back. When I was 17 years old, seeing I could, or seeing all of the. I'm having trouble talking today. Trust me, I've only had half of a beer. All of these stats here, dating from 1941. That was what was cool. I remember way back in the day, 30 plus years ago, when I got this card, that seeing stats from 1941, I thought holding that card at a show was just really cool before I bought it. So I did grade this in the last year or so. Came back a 4, which I was a little disappointed about that. Actually, I was hoping it would get at least a 5, but it's totally fine. It'll always be a special one, and hence one of my favorites in vintage. Those are my 1960s one. Everything else is going to be from the 50s now. Starting with this one, 1959 Al Kaline. I don't think I've shared this one before. This is just a really cool shot of him, at the peak of his, kind of his power, so to speak, as just one of the American League's most feared hitters. Obviously that continued into the 60s as well, and even into the 70s. But this is a great pose to him. It's just, I think this particular shot of him in that swing pose, kind of looking in that direction, it really works with the porthole card. I think this uses the porthole design. It's just one of the better shots, I think, in that particular set, in this particular design. I think it's a classic shot of Al Kaline. I think it's one of his best cards. Obviously, his rookie's probably right alongside it, and then coincidentally, they both have the red background. Great card there. One of my favorites. Then we're going to go just 1 year back prior, 1958. Willie Mays All-Star. It's my favorite All-Star design of that era. So that's one reason why I wanted to share this. But another thing I wanted to mention, in some ways, this card is almost a substitute for a card I actually don't have. And that's because this is the same pose that they used for Mays on their 1957 set. And they just basically airbrushed the NY for SF because they had just moved to San Francisco. And I really like that 57 Topps Willie Mays from, it's the Polo Ground. He's in the Polo Grounds with the shot, and that's really the only Topps issue of Willie, using a full photograph in New York. And so that's a card I definitely am aiming to get at some point. I won't necessarily be looking for it at the National. If an opportunity presents itself, who knows, maybe I will spring for one there, but next week. But that is just an awesome card and something I'd really like to get, because all those other cards that they did for Willie in New York, they're all the artist rendition of photos. And we're 54, no, but 54 had the dual photo, of course, on the classic design, but it's not like the full photograph background and everything. So, and 57 is really his only one in Topps, I'm pretty sure. Yeah. So before they moved to Frisco. So, but at the same time, I love the All-Star design from 58, and it's just a really cool Willie Mays card. So, got that graded recently too. Was happy it came back a 6. So, there's my first 5. I'll try to show these last 5 as quickly as I can here and wrap it up in the next few minutes. I'm going to show 2 from 1957. This one here, a lot of people in vintage probably are very familiar with this card. This is just an absolute classic card in the vintage era. I mean, this is just, it's the Boys of Summer. It's not all of them, of course, but there's 4 of them right there from 1957 Topps in Ebbets Field. I mean, that's another reason why I really actually like the 57 set. It doesn't have probably quite as many devotees to that set as, say, 56 or 54. But 57 Topps is definitely in my top 10 of favorite sets. Because it was sort of its answer to 53 Bowman. Topps hadn't really done a set like this before. So in some ways, this set was like a milestone set for them. And this is just a classic card. Carl Furillo, Gil Hodges, Roy Campanella, and Duke Snider. Just an awesome card. I'm on the fence about getting this one graded. The reason why I'm on the fence about it is because it has a front side only crease on right up, so as you can see it right there, up and down on the Gil right there. It's like a surface crease. It's not like all the way through to the other side. It's not at all there on the other side. And so, you know, this probably doesn't grade any more than a 3, and that would probably be on a good day. But the centering's pretty good on it. So, and because the card would just look awesome in a slab, I'm still possibly on the fence about getting it graded at some point. So I've actually had it out recently because I'm thinking about including it in my next order. But that's one right there from 57. Let me leave that up there. Another one from 1957. This is a common, actually, and it's actually going to be the only common of the bunch. But it's just such an awesome card, and I talked about it in one other video. It's this longtime player who played for the Philadelphia A's for a long time, starting in 1940. So he played for Connie Mack for many years. And then after they moved to KC, came back to Philly, played for the Phillies. Just like if you look closely at this picture of Elmer Vallo grabbing, first off, the bat rack is just such a cool, you know, shot in the dugout there. But look at the TV camera. That's what does it for me. It's like, when I saw that for the first time, I'm like, holy crap, that is just so cool. It's so, like, if that doesn't scream vintage, I'm not sure what, you know, 50s especially, 50s era card can. I mean, it's just, you know, it's got like, you know, the wooden legs maybe of the camera, like tripod or whatever, you know, stand it's on. It's just so cool. It really takes you back. So I just think this card is sweet. And it's actually, you know, it's off center, but I enjoyed picking this up. I remember buying this with a batch of 57s. I probably bought a half dozen of these from like the same seller, and they were all in pretty good condition, actually. So I enjoyed getting this when I did. Such a cool card because of that camera, especially, but the bat rack shot's cool too. All right, got 3 to go. Going to go to 1954 Topps. This is my favorite set. Well, 1978 Topps is probably my favorite set of all time because it was my first one. But 1954 Topps is right there. Probably my second favorite set of all time. You know, I've been fortunate to be able to complete it actually in the last year. This was the last card that I picked up for it. Mr. Henry Aaron. It's his rookie card, of course. It's graded 1.5 by SGC. So the creases are obviously there, but I love this card. I just, what I really love about it is that, you know, you could see them quite a bit, especially on the back. You know, this was probably a classic by Expo card because a lot of them are in the quadrants. But what I love about it is that it's, you know, like a lot of the card is like the integrity of the card is still very much here. The color's still pretty good on it. It's not too faded. And the crease is not all over his face. It sort of just gets onto his forehead there a little bit with one of them. So overall, actually, I might actually, this one right here, I don't actually think that's on the card. I think that's like, it might be a hair from like a cat or something that snuck into that, into the bag that it's in. So I'll have to look into that later. But just a really cool card. I mean, it's a classic of the hobby. This is probably, actually, not probably, it is the most valuable card in my collection. And I actually got this in a really, probably unique way. I got to see what that's about on there, by the way. I'm pretty sure it's just a little fuzzy kind of a thing. Yeah, so it was in the bag. But so I'll keep it out for now. But I got that in a very interesting, unique way. I have a video about it. It's a bit of a longer video, but it's a unique story about how I picked that up. The title of the video is, if you wanted to look at it, look it up. It's, what do they call it? Epic Galactic Rookie Trade. Basically, I had a kind of a classic Lego Star Wars item that I sold and took a good chunk of the proceeds from that and got this. So it was pretty interesting how that all came about. 2 more cards I'm going to show here, and then I will finally hit the pause button and wrap this up. Another one from 54, Whitey Ford. This is my favorite design card of the 54 set, so I had to include it in here. I've shown it a few times. Just think it's an awesome card. I've talked a lot about it. Everything from, you know, showing the ball to the light blue. I like that it's in a 5. I like that he's wearing a road jersey, and you can, you know, see it pretty prominently. I just think this is an awesome card of him. Just a cool pose. Love it. One of my favorite vintage cards of all time. And then the last one I'm going to show is from 1953 Bowman. It is Al Rosen. I may have shown this card once before. I got this from Greg Morris. If you've purchased Greg Morris cards, you know they come with this sticker on the card saver. This is just it's a classic pose of him in Yankee Stadium. It's from his MVP year. He won the AL MVP in 1953. It's in pretty decent condition too. I'm on the fence about getting it graded. He's not super valuable in the hobby by any means. Not a Hall of Famer, but he was a big-time '50s All-Star, multi All-Star player, and was an MVP one year and a World Series champion in '48. Really interesting backstory with Al Rosen that I've also talked about in the past video. I'll give you the short version. My first major league game was in 1978, Yankees versus A's. Al Rosen was the GM or president of the Yankees at the time. My father was a New York City cabbie for many years. Based in the Bronx, the Yankees were an account of theirs. He had several players in his car over the years, and also Yankees staff. And one day he had Al Rosen in his car, and I guess they struck up a really cool conversation. Long story short, he hooked him up with tickets. And I was 5 years old at the time, and that was my first ball game. We sat in the second row behind the Oakland A's dugout. So it was a pretty cool way to get your first major league game in, and undoubtedly a memory that has stuck with me. And so very fortuitous pickup for my dad that night, and created a lifelong memory for me, which helped not just seed my interest in baseball cards, obviously, but because I was already getting cards in 1978, so my first game on top of that just made me a baseball fan overall, more just that much more than any other sport. Although I do like hockey quite a bit. I've never talked much about hockey on this channel, but hockey is probably my second favorite sport. When I get into watching it, I'm a pretty big New York Rangers fan. But I don't watch them. I don't watch hockey quite as much as I used to, but it's such an exciting game. There's nothing like playoff overtime, but I'm digressing, and I'll wrap up this video. 10 vintage cards from the 50s and 60s here. These are my favorite vintage cards today in mid-July 2023. And with that, I'll wrap up this video. Mr. Fisher Bike, thanks for the chance to, talk a little bit about these cards. I enjoy doing it. So thanks for watching, everybody. See you on the next video.